You finally decided to go for it. You signed up for the U.S. Army. That means there's one big thing looming in your future: boot camp. You heard the rumors, but it can't be that bad, can it? In today's episode of the Infographic Show, we'll show you what new Army recruits really go through in boot camp. Officially known as basic training, boot camp is going to put you through 10 weeks of hell, where you'll be pushed to your breaking point, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Not everybody you meet is going to make it. Anywhere between 11 and 14% of the recruits you meet will drop out before getting to the end of their 10 weeks. You hope that you won't be one of them. First, you're assigned to a basic training location. The U.S. Army has 4 of these: Fort Moore in Georgia, Fort Sill in Oklahoma, Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, and Fort Jackson in South Carolina. Your boot camp location is based on several criteria. As a general enlisted member, you'll complete a physical test before entering into more specialized training at the same facility, which determines where you're assigned for boot camp. Someone who wants to enter the military police will be assigned to Fort Leonard Wood. Infantry and armor specialists complete their basic training at Fort Moore. Essentially, you're going wherever the Army tells you to go. You start packing your bags. Comfortable clothing is a must, with white underwear, calf-length white athletic socks, and a pair of running shoes all being mandated, as well as the required toiletries. Plus, you have to bring a number of documents, including your social security card, a valid state ID, immunization records, and your high school diploma or higher educational certificate. You've not even started basic training yet, and you already have a ton of requirements to follow. You'll receive your first orders from your local military entrance processing station, or MEPS, as well as your transportation details. You'll be picked up, likely via a bus, and taken to basic training by the Army. Your first week is taken up by the Reception Battalion, which is also known as Week 0. Think of this as your transition week. You'll establish your military records, filling out paperwork related to your medical, financial, and personal circumstances. These files will follow you throughout your entire military career, serving as the groundwork for everything that comes after. You'll also start to get a taste of what military life is really like. Each reception battalion processes hundreds of soldiers per day, meaning you'll feel like cattle being led from one place to another. Information comes thick and fast, with briefings being held to cover everything from the U.S. Army's 7 core values to where key on-post facilities are located in your camp. Beyond general orientation, the reception battalion is also when you'll be issued your uniform and U.S. Army identification tags and cards. You'll also get your Army Core Values cards, go through an eye and dental check, and receive your immunizations. Then there are the drill classes: marching, barracks upkeep, and physical training, along with several others that are all designed to condition you for the weeks ahead. Your head is spinning, but you're feeling pretty confident at this point. You've already started to adapt to life at boot camp. You've been put through your physical paces a little, but that's nothing compared to what awaits you. You're packed into a bus from the reception battalion and sent to your barracks. This'll be your home for the next 9 weeks. Immediately, your military instructor tells you to line up your bag in a specific way and then empty it. You better not have any contraband, otherwise you're going to get an up-close and personal chance to see your new drill sergeant lose their mind in your direction. Much like the reception battalion, you're going to spend the next 3 weeks going through a true transformation. If Week 0 was about getting you processed and acclimated to the basics of being in the Army, the next few weeks are all about turning you into a confident soldier rather than a confused civilian. One of your first orders of business: the Army Combat Fitness Test, or ACFT. The ACFT is a 50-minute test of your physical endurance that includes multiple exercises designed to demonstrate that you're up to handling the physical pressure that comes with U.S. Army service. You'll take this test several times throughout basic training, with the first one always being the hardest. The test is divided into 6 events, including a strength deadlift, push-ups, and core strength test, before ending with a brutal 2-mile run. You'd better hope that you left yourself enough energy and time to complete it after the previous 5 exercises. For the overall test, you need to get 360 out of 600 to pass, with each section being scored out of 100. If you fail, there is good news. You're not immediately booted out of the U.S. Army. Instead, you'll receive additional training and support in preparation for a retake. However, if you fail that, there's a good chance you'll be involuntarily separated from the Army, which means you're out on your rear. On the plus side, the ACFT is far from impossible. 98% of active duty men and 95% of active duty women can pass it, with average scores ranging from 498 for men and 477 for women. And here's the bad news: you're probably going to end up doing the ACFT a couple more times before you're done with basic training. The ACFT might be one of the most grueling aspects of Phase 1 of your basic training, but it's far from the only one that'll put you to the test. This phase will also see you get issued your M16 training rifle, as well as learn how to assemble, disassemble, and care for that rifle. You'll also hold drills related to crowd dispersal, hand-to-hand combat, and running tactical marches. Peppered throughout all of these are lessons covering the U.S. Army's 7 core values. Hopefully you remember those from your reception battalion, as well as the institution's ethics and traditions. Physical and mental limits are pushed, but you're not even safe once you get back to the barracks. Inspections are carried out daily, meaning you have to prove you can handle basics like making your bed and keeping your space clean. Through it all, you're picking up the fundamentals of being a soldier. You haven't even fired your rifle yet, but you're constantly learning and testing your fitness. Oh, and we forgot one thing. You're going to be gassed. That doesn't mean that you'll run out of gas in the physical sense. Rather, every U.S. Army recruit has to undergo nuclear, biological, and chemical, or NBC training. And there is no getting around it. This training is a horror show. You're placed in a gas chamber with only your protective mask for company. Then you'll receive training on how to fit your protective mask and your other chemical gear. You're told to line up in a group alongside 5 to 15 other soldiers outside of the gas chamber doors, where you'll put on your protective mask. You'll enter, along with a drill sergeant, to a room that is filled with fog. That fog is CS gas, also known as tear gas, and you're about to get a taste of what it feels like. The drill sergeant taps you on the shoulder. That's your sign to lift your mask and state your name, rank, and social security number. You try to stay calm, inhaling as deeply as you can before you lift your mask and deliver the details. But you panic, inhaling some of the gas as you speak. Your eyes water, but that's okay. The drill sergeant wants you to inhale some of the gas, so you get a true appreciation for how important your protective mask will be. Afterwards, you'll receive one final instruction: remove your mask and file out of the chamber in order. It's almost guaranteed that you will inhale some CS gas during this process. Congratulations, you made it. Phase 1 puts you through a series of very tough tests, but you're not even close to being done. Now Phase 2 is on the horizon. You're going to spend most of these 2 weeks getting very acquainted with your M16. You spend around 6 hours at the range learning how to group your shots in tight bundles. A further 8 hours go toward learning how to set your sights. Even the best rifle can't hit a target if it has a poorly aligned sight. Another 6 hours is dedicated to providing feedback on your performance, with your trainer offering advice on how to improve your shooting. Next, you'll be tasked with shooting pop-ups and single targets from 3 different firing positions. Your goal is simple: hit 23 out of the 40 targets that pop out at different ranges. You'll also be given a chance to get familiar with some of the other weapons at this point, including hand grenades and machine guns, with the M240 and M2 being common training guns. Work with heavy weapons such as grenade launchers and anti-tank weaponry will also follow up your basic rifle training. Beyond weapons training, you'll also run drills to keep your physical fitness up, as well as drills designed to improve your teamwork and hand-to-hand combat abilities. Night training is also a part of this phase, and it's likely you'll be introduced to map and compass reading during overnight sorties. You'll also continue your studies into Army ethics and values, with the goal being much of the same as your physical training: constant drilling until you know it all by heart. Then there's the confidence course, an obstacle course that you're challenged to complete in a set time frame. The course gets its colloquial name from its intent. It's supposed to build your confidence in your growing abilities. It's an assortment of obstacles that includes walls to climb, stairs, ropes for climbing and crossing gaps, and wells. You also have to push your way through water tanks and muddy puddles, as well as crawl under webbing, all designed to test the limits of the cardio you've been building up during these first 5 weeks of basic training. The goal here is to wear you out without completely destroying you physically. You emerge victorious. You feel fitter, sharper. Your mind and body are growing more attuned to military life, and you've learned many of the skills you'll be taking with you to the battlefield. But you're far from done with your training. Weeks 6 through 9 await as you enter Phase 3 of boot camp. Phase 3 is the culmination of everything you've done so far. You may even have to run through the ACFT again. Advanced rifle marksmanship training sees you using lasers and scopes with your rifle, with the physical aspects of the training also seeing you focus more on proper maneuvering and working as part of a team to take out targets. You'll also start to work with more advanced weapons, such as mines. And don't for a second think that you can start to relax on the basic maintenance aspect. You'll be tested constantly. But perhaps the standouts for this phase are the training operations that take you away from the comforts of the barracks and, crucially, the dining facilities that have always been available. These exercises include bivouac, or camping without the fun, and military operations in urban terrain, or MOUT. teaching you how to engage in combat in urban terrain. Access to the chow hall is restricted during these exercises, with you being expected to prepare and eat either meal ready-to-eats or MREs or food you secure in the field. You'll have noticed something by this point. Your training has started to feel a lot more adversarial. This comes to a head during the Field Training Exercise, or FTX. Drill sergeants are pitting you against other recruits. You get set tasks to complete, and it's often your drill sergeants who are working against you to prevent you from completing those tasks. Other companies might get involved, especially during your nighttime exercises, and are stacked against you in an informal competition to see which company is the best trained. Between it all, you'll also be taking part in foot marches ranging from a distance of 6 to almost 9 miles and learning how military convoys work. But the good news is that after FTX, you're almost done with this phase. Almost. Everything you've done up to this point has led you to the end of cycle test, or EOCT. Think of this as the final exam of boot camp. You're presented with 212 questions in an exam setting, covering subjects such as visual signals, how you should move when under direct fire, and how to apply emergency bandages and tourniquets when you're in the field. The exam will cover practically everything you've learned during basic training, and it's gonna be tough. You only get a passing grade if you complete all 212 tasks successfully. You'll see a handful of your fellow recruits fail out of the US Army because of this test, but you made it through. Now you can move on to the last week of this stage, Recovery Week. Don't let the name fool you, as you won't be using this week to laze around in the barracks. While the physical training slows down, you'll have to use this week to prepare for Advanced Individual Training, or AIT. Recovery Week is mostly spent on servicing or repairing any of the equipment that you're not going to be taking with you to AIT. Bedding, weapons, and the equipment you were issued for your basic training, such as your helmet and canteen, all need to be properly serviced and given back. Same goes for your platoon barracks. When you cycle out of basic training, you're going to be replaced by dozens of new recruits, and they need to come into the same environment you entered. Still, Recovery Week is a welcome relief from all the stresses that came during the previous 10 weeks. Plus, you're going to spend a portion of it preparing for the reward you've been working for throughout boot camp, graduation. The week of your training sees you get fitted for your recruit's dress uniform, as well as running through practice drills for the graduation ceremony you'll take part in at the end of basic. Then the big day comes. You're allowed to invite as many of your friends and family to see you graduate as you would like. As for the ceremony itself, you'll get dressed to the nines and march in formation to the parade grounds as your friends and family watch on. At some point, you'll pass by the top brass of your battalion, which is when you'll hear the famous "Eyes Right" command, which is your signal to turn your head and salute. You'll be marching alongside every other company that has successfully passed out of training, with the company that received the top marks during boot camp typically being the last one to march. You've finally made it. You've completed the US Army's basic training. You're set to head out into the field, right? Not so fast. Graduation just marks the end of basic. From there, you'll head to AIT, where you'll train for your chosen military occupational specialty, which you selected all those weeks ago when you signed up. There isn't much of a gap between basic and AIT, with only a handful of days to travel between your boot camp location and your new training facility. How long you'll spend at AIT depends on your MOS. But one thing is for certain, now that you've completed the US Army boot camp, you feel like you're ready to take on anything. Now go check out why you wouldn't survive Navy SEAL training, or click this other video instead.